Before we head to the airport, just a little bit about this wonderful place. But if you really don't care, feel free to use the timestamps below and find the content that you're here for. In the meantime though, here's some footage from my trip while I talk a bit about this wonderful place. The Tibetan country of Bhutan is quite possibly one of the world's most beautiful countries. It starts with their picturesque landscape and mountains and continues on to the fantastic people. A culture that remains strong from the architecture to the food. Bhutan is a country that has a strong sense of national identity. Partially because they didn't even open their borders to tourism until the 1980s. Before then, it was known for its monasteries, where Buddhism still runs through the veins of this homeland. All this beauty comes at a price still, considering it's one of the toughest places to get a visa for in the world. Unless you're a citizen of a couple countries like India and Nepal, you must go through a tour operator just to get a visa. Once you're on an organized tour, the company will work for you to get a visa. You can't just walk into an embassy and request a visa like usual, it has to be done through a tour agency. This is done in order to preserve the strong culture that they have here and also why they didn't open their borders until the 80s. That said, once you get here, you'll be glad to have someone drive you around and show you the sights. I was even able to customize my tour and tell them everything I wanted to do while I was here. My guide Kunga could not have been a more gracious host, and I would 100% go back to this wonderful place. But without wasting any more time, let's go to the most beautiful airport in the world. Being the only airport in Bhutan until 2011, and still being the only international airport in Bhutan, the Paro Airport is a landmark for tourism in Bhutan, considering every passenger must go through here at some point in their journey. It's known worldwide for being one of the toughest approaches into the airport, and if you haven't seen my last video covering that, go check it out. But what not enough people pay attention to is the absolutely wonderful architecture and art throughout this airport, making it, in my opinion, the world's most beautiful airport, from the curbside to the airplane. So without further ado, let's head inside and check in. Past the passport check and through the first door you walk into the terminal that is absolutely breathtaking. Floor to ceiling paintings and art makes this feel more like a temple or a monastery than an international airport. Today we'll be traveling on Bhutan Airlines, which is one of two airlines in the country of Bhutan, the other one being Druk Air, which is the government-owned airline as opposed to Bhutan Airlines, which is the privately owned airline. It's been around for a little over 10 years, starting as a domestic carrier, before shortly after suspending service and reopening a couple years later, servicing Kolkata, continuing on to Bangkok. That's actually the route that we will be traveling on today. There was a dedicated business class check-in lane, however there was still a short line. It took me about 5 to 10 minutes to get through. After that, however, I did have my business class branded boarding pass and also a lounge access card for the Bhutan Airlines lounge located right within the Paro Airport. After that, we headed off past the check-in counters towards the immigration and security. Interestingly enough, you'll see a large number of paintings around the airport, all of which are for sale. The whole process for immigration and security only took about 10 minutes. After that, you get into the main atrium where you'll see a balcony up above. That is actually where all of the lounges for the airport are located. Interestingly enough, there are actually separate lounges for Druk Air and Bhutan Airlines, the two Bhutanese carriers here and the only two airlines to fly out of the country of Bhutan. The first lounge that you're going to pass is the Druk Air Business Class Lounge, which faces the runway and the ramp. This was closed at this time because there was no flights departing. However, across the way we find the Business Class Lounge for Bhutan Airlines passengers. Now, Bhutan Airlines only has 2 aircraft in their fleet, so the lounge is never really that crowded considering there's usually only 1 flight at a time departing. So you have all the options that you could ever need for seating. Now, all seats are truly created equal here, as you can see the seats when you first enter the door looking as normal chairs with a small table in between. And they all seem to resemble that same look, it's just that you'll have more seats next to each other. However, considering each of their aircraft only has about 8 business class seats, there's a limited amount of people that actually would be in this lounge at any given time. The seats themselves are nothing special, but it is fun that they do come with this Bhutan Airlines branded pillow. The windows are actually fogged out, which isn't the end of the world considering we're facing away from the runway and instead just looking towards the parking lot. Also in the lounge you'll see a TV with all departures and arrivals from Paro Airport, and although it is hard to see, you'll notice that the only Bhutan Airlines scheduled departure is our flight to Bangkok, continuing from Kolkata. I grabbed a seat and made myself comfortable, however it never did really get all that crowded. The most people that were in here were about 5 or 6. In the meantime, I grabbed some tea and I grabbed some pastries, pretty much the only options available at the buffet at this time of day, and made myself comfortable. Outside of the lounge, up on top of the balconies, you'll also see 3 separate lounges, lounge 1, 2, and 3, which are more of a private room setup. They weren't locked, anyone was able to walk in, and they have room for bigger groups, including couches and a TV in order to get comfortable. They didn't seem to be regulating who went in and out of here, so to my assumption, anyone could gain access. From these rooms, however, you do get a pretty good view of the ramp and the runway, so if you are looking to watch your plane arrive through that tough approach, you do have a good view from here. Back downstairs from the lounge, on either side of this wonderful mural and beautiful pillars and crown molding, we see the duty-free shop, as well as other shops offering Bhutanese art and Bhutanese products. I was able to get some teas and other Bhutanese local items for a very good price. You'll also see a lot more art for sale amongst the rest of the sea of seats. There's not a lot of charging ports out amongst the seats, however you will find charging stations scattered throughout the airport. Not only is the airport itself beautiful, but so is all the art that you're going to find around the airport. Most of it is for sale, and wherever you look you will find assortments of paintings, carved masks, or other art items. As far as dining option goes, there's really only this little cafe, but if you do just want some coffee and pastries similar to what we had up in the lounge, it is available here, and it's not the typical airport prices that you're used to. Across the restroom here is a sea of seats, and on the other side is my boarding gate where a bunch of people were anxiously awaiting to board our flight to Bangkok via Kolkata. No boarding groups here, just a free-for-all underneath the dragon art and out onto the ramp. Once we got out onto the ramp, you see more wonderful pillars and a beautiful crown molding on the awning at our boarding gate. From there though, it was just a short walk across the ramp out to our airplane where the mountains set the perfect backdrop. And in case the inside of the airport was not enough to wow you, here's the outside of the airport on the ramp side, where you can see not only a beautiful building but beautiful murals as well to go along with it. I did very much enjoy my walk out to the airplane, as we got to see both of the airplanes that make up Bhutan Airlines' fleet, with the Bhutanese mountains as a backdrop for the entire scene. Before we finally reached our airplane, the second of 2, climbed on board, met our wonderful crew, and headed to the business class cabin, which is at the front of the airplane, makes up the first 3 rows in a 2-2 setup. Today we'll be in the last row in a window seat, seat 3F. The seats were an interesting brown color with yellow accents, which wasn't exactly the most visually appealing seats in the world. They did come, however, with a Bhutan Airlines branded pillow and blanket with every seat. Now the seats, however, weren't the most comfortable. You can see they were plenty wide and could fit most people. However, they weren't the most comfortable business class seats that you'll find. Upon sitting, we also found our welcome drink menu, which came with a simple choice of apple juice, orange juice, water, or champagne. Here you can see the view in front of you where there is no in-flight entertainment, similar to Droop Air, just a backseat pocket and a footrest. You can see here that I was able to store my backpack under the seat in front of me. The only problem is that when it comes to the footrest, if you do have your bag under your seat, you can't really get the footrest all the way down. Now a look around the seat, which was fairly simple. On the left side is really just a wide armrest with a place to rest your drinks. In front of you, you can see where I stashed my backpack. There is also a spot between the seats to store luggage if you want some more space by your feet. The right side is where all the action happens. Not all that much, but you do have a little bit of a button here to recline the seat, and in the armrest is where you're going to find your fold-out tray table, which, as most tray tables, can fold out halfway or can be unfolded to give you the full size for the meal service. Something interesting with the seat is that as a person of average size like me at about 160 pounds, you can see my seatbelt was almost at full extension. Not much more room to make it bigger, so if you were a little heavier, this might be a tough seat to fit in. The seat back pocket had a good amount of literature in it that I wanted to take a look through, starting off with this magazine, which had a good amount of stuff about local Bhutanese culture and foods, where I was able to read up a little bit on the country even though I was leaving it. We were also given this business newspaper showing us the status of the financial race of the country. This was a few days old, so I'm not sure how recently they replaced them. They do also have the Sky Shop magazine, which is basically just a duty-free option with a bunch of different items for purchase. It didn't seem like they had any of this available on board, however you could order it all for delivery. My favorite thing, however, was this magazine that was actually Bhutan Airlines' own branded magazine, which had some good stuff about not only Bhutan, but the airline itself. It included things such as the fleet information, the destination map, and because it was such a small airline, they were even able to show us an entire timetable of all the flights and when they operate. They also have interesting things such as this beginner's guide to the language that they speak in the country of Bhutan. Simple things from just saying hello and goodbye, to short phrases, to ordering things at restaurants, something that is nice if you're new to a country that you don't speak the language in. It also included an ad here for the Mountain Cafe, including a Drook Air A320 that seemed to be nosediving that cafe. Lastly, similar to Drook Air, they did have this card here describing the in-flight entertainment options that were available on your personal device. Unfortunately, no charging outlets, so your phone might die if you were taking advantage of that in-flight entertainment option. Shortly before pushing back, we were also offered these nice warm towels, not scented but heated, and also a nice glass of a beverage. I went with the champagne option for this flight. As we taxied out here from our gate, we had a wonderful view of not only the private jets on the ramp, also the other airline, the Bhutan Airlines fleet, two of the Drook Air fleet. We got a great view of the terminal, both the arriving part of the terminal and the departures part of the terminal, and at the very end we got a great view of the private terminal, used mostly by the king and his visitors. And just as we taxied past the control tower for Paro Airport, we come across the executive terminal. This is the terminal that the president and other visiting executives use visiting this country. The departure from Paro was absolutely gorgeous. Even though we got above the clouds fairly early, we got a great view of not only the mountains in the Paro area, but the rest of the Bhutanese Himalayas in the background, made for a wonderful backdrop as we departed this wonderful mountainous country. Connecting to the in-flight entertainment was easy after connecting to their Wi-Fi. It doesn't have Wi-Fi, but it does allow you to scan the QR code and get to the home page of the in-flight entertainment options, which weren't that great with just movies, music, and games. There were a couple TV shows scattered throughout. At the very top here you can see me scrolling through some of the recommended items like Friends, which did have some options for TV shows, however most of the entertainment was just movies. Just below that you see the movie selection, where there really wasn't all that much to watch. I ended up just watching something to pass the time, as this flight really was only about an hour. The music had even less choices, with not a whole lot of options in there to listen to. And after that was the games, which did have a few options, and I actually did play a few of those games to pass some of the time. The main thing I did use on this in-flight entertainment here was the in-flight map, and the flight information was incorrect, showing our route from Calcutta to Bangkok instead of Paro to Calcutta. But I was at least able to look at the map and see where we were in reference to our destination. A couple other items that are in the work is the shop, which really just has test items available at this time and doesn't actually allow you to purchase anything, and also this seat-to-seat chat. Putting your name and your seat number gets you in here, and I couldn't figure out if it was a chat for the full airplane or specifically seat-to-seat, but it's something that is in the works on their apps. So with all things said and done, no, it's not the best in-flight entertainment that you're going to find. However, not exactly like you're expecting all that much from a country that only has a few flights a day for the entire country. A meal of any length is greatly appreciated on a 1-hour flight, so I was very grateful to receive this shortly after departure. I decided to go with a cup of coffee, and with that came a substantial enough sandwich filled with cheese. Along with that was this pastry, which had some cheesy substance, but the real star was the peppers that were in that, along with a small bag of peanuts to go along with it. The restroom is about as basic as you'd expect for an A320, however I did like the nice plant that they had over here in the corner, which was fake. However, they did have some of the nicest soap bottles that I've ever seen on board an airplane. And all of that came with these nice refreshing wipes and also a nice air freshener to go along with it. Now, as I mentioned, this flight was only about an hour long, so it wasn't long after we completed our meal service that we had begun our descent into Kolkata, India. Now, as I mentioned in my Druk Air video, this flight also operates as a Fifth Freedoms flight, meaning that you can book the leg from Paro to Kolkata, Kolkata to Bangkok, or you can book the entire thing from Paro to Bangkok via Kolkata. Our journey, however, ends here at Kolkata, only operating on that first leg, where I stayed here for a short while before continuing on home. Now I have officially flown both of the airlines that fly into Bhutan that belong to the country. Drook Air, which was the publicly owned airline, and Bhutan Airlines now, which is the privately owned airline. I do have to say that I think that Drook Air's product was slightly better. They definitely offered some more entertainment options, even though it was still a slim offering, and I thought that the food offerings weren't that great. Where I will give Bhutan Airlines the edge is that on the shorter leg on Drook Air, we didn't get any sort of meal service or even a beverage service, whereas Bhutan Airlines did give us a full breakfast meal on our way from Paro to Kolkata, which was greatly appreciated. After collecting our bags, it was time to head through immigration and out into the country of India, into the city of Kolkata. Now, Kolkata is actually one of the oldest airports in the country of India, being open since about the 1920s, opening of course as a military airport. However, post-independence it served as largely a transit hub for airlines traveling from Europe to Indochina and the rest of Australia. That being said, though, Bhutan Airlines was a wonderful flight. I was happy to be here in India in the city of Kolkata, and I hope you all enjoy the journey with me. However, until now and the next time, safe travels, and I'll see you with the next trip.